operate behind the scenes, I'm telling you that Deshaun Watson should absolutely flex his muscles and get out of there. And so there might be more instances like this. But my question to you guys is, as it pertains to the Vikings, who appear to be either not in the mix at all for him, or, at best, maybe they pick up the phone and they're told, sorry, like, we're not gonna wait for you to clear Kirk's contract out, and like, you guys just aren't in a place to make this happen. How does it make you guys feel that they aren't in a place to make this happen? If that is indeed the way this plays out, and it looks like it is, how does it make you feel that they can't make this happen right now?
If this was an isolated thing where I felt the rest of the Vikings strategy and how they approach roster construction now was fine, I think it would be, my feeling would be slightly frustrating, but not much more than that. But it's not. I see, the more I watch games of playoff teams now, right? Mm-hmm. And the more I see the approach of teams, and make no mistake, the league is shifting in thought processes across the board. Like, there are things changing as we speak right now. And there are teams, some with older executives and coaches, some with young ones, who are changing as it changes because they know that is the way to win. I look at the Vikings now, and the fact that they're not in position, the fact that they basically had this weird notion of, if we just get Kirk's contract, if we just get the cap hit down for 2020, we'll be fine. And then I guess we can be competitive in 2020, which they really weren't. The most adult word that I could possibly use to sum up my feeling is this: flawed. I feel it's flawed. I feel it's flawed that a great quarterback who potentially could alter your franchise for, let's say, 8 to 10 years is there, and you've got a solid and good, but what I would describe as not great QB, and you are stuck. But the Vikings are largely stuck. The last 2 weeks, when I watch the best teams, Phil and Dex, have proved to me that how the Vikings are doing things at one time, much like the old school Twins, at one time was pretty smart and astute, but it's changing, and I don't see the Vikings adapting, and this is another example of the fact that they're not adapting, potentially holds them back from making a splash move that could answer a lot of their problems in one trade. It'd be a massive trade, but it would answer a lot of those problems.
Yeah. How do you feel, Declan? You've been sitting here waiting for a franchise quarterback too, that they're not even really in a position to make a serious phone call on this.
It's frustrating. I understand why they had to extend Kirk to lower the cap hit for 2020, open up some cap space. But then when you really look at it, I mean, your main free agent piece last year was Michael Pierce. He opts out for the right reasons, by the way. It's not like he opts out because he did something wrong. He opted out because there was a pandemic going on and he has underlying health conditions.
Yep.
But it's just more icing on the cake of, why the hell did we even do this extension? Because now you could have been in the perfect position to at least acquire and make the phone call for Deshaun Watson. You wouldn't have had to trade up the second round pick to get Unique Ngakoue for 6 weeks. You'd have all the resources to do it. So honestly, it just is frustrating because I would have been ready to move on from Kirk right now. We could be having an unreal conversation, not just about Deshaun Watson, but of all the quarterbacks available in free agency and the draft or trade that the Vikings could be interested in. And as much as we love our reckless speculation, I could not imagine how much we could be talking about the next quarterback for the Vikings who could be at their disposal right now.
Reckless speculation.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you nailed it there, in that in retrospect now, lowering Kirk's cap number and then adding more guaranteed money for future years in order to bring in a win now piece in Michael Pierce. Could they have foreseen the pandemic causing players to opt out? I mean, the pandemic was hitting around the time that NFL free agency was starting, and so maybe they should have had some more foresight to not put as many chips on the 2020 table as they did. But that's, hindsight's 2020 on that front. They made a win now move to clear some cap space to get a guy who opted out, and as a result, they locked into Kirk Cousins for like $60 million guaranteed over 2021 and 2022, and they didn't make the playoffs after the win now move. So that blew up in their faces. And I think I was just sort of writing down as Judd was talking, in terms of being stuck. Judd used the word stuck. And I think when it comes to quarterbacks in the NFL, I think you have to be in one of 3 places as a franchise. And if you're not in one of these 3 places, then you are stuck. and it is 100% self-inflicted. Place number one is you've drafted a young quarterback, ideally in the first round, one that has a real chance to pan out. Not that all first-round quarterbacks pan out, but like you're making a real concerted effort at a franchise quarterback in the first round, a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson, whoever that is, right? He doesn't make a lot of money. He's on a rookie scale contract for 5 years, 4 or 5 years if you exercise the 5th-year option, and you're seeing if he's the guy. So, and by the way, at any point during that stretch, like the Bears, if you decide after year 3, he's not the guy, or year 4, he's not the guy, he doesn't make a lot of money, and so you can just bring somebody else in. You can bring in Nick Foles, or you can, whatever. You can bring in a Phillip Rivers or somebody because you're not dedicating $30 million to that young quarterback. So position number one is you've got a young quarterback, and you're just trying to see if he becomes a franchise guy, all right? And the Vikings aren't in that position. Position number 2 is you got your franchise guy. He's like a top 6 or top 7 quarterback. And because he's a top 6, top 7 quarterback, maybe even a Hall of Fame quarterback, it doesn't matter as much how much he makes. Obviously, you'd like to pay him less because then you can build your roster out. But like, it doesn't really matter how much Pat Mahomes makes. He's so good that he makes up for like your lack of a nickel cornerback or something, right? Like he's that good. Well, they're not really in that spot either. Like Kirk had a really good season, but Kirk ain't what Tom Brady is at 43.
He doesn't cover for people. Yeah, I agree with that.
He's not elevating like holes on your roster,
Sure.
right? Okay, well, what about the third position? I would say the third position should be if you don't have a young guy that you're trying to figure out and you don't have a stud, bona fide, potential Hall of Fame quarterback, then you should be in the transition bin, which is flexible contract, move off if necessary.
The Childress years.
Right.
That's where they stayed. The transition.
Gus Frerotte. Okay, we'll get a year of Brett Favre over here.
They paid him for 1 year.
At no point did they lock in a non-elite quarterback to like $60 million guaranteed. So the Vikings are not in any of those 3 bins. They are in non-elite good quarterback, but non-elite quarterback who makes too much money to move off without feeling a significant cap hurt. Mm-hmm. And as a result, they don't really get to choose who they want to play quarterback. Like Deshaun Watson being available to them really is predicated on them moving Kirk Cousins' contract first. It's a huge pain in the ass for everybody involved.
And the problem is, in the Vikings case, they're probably not even thinking in those terms at all. So I just had an epiphany. I think that we could come up with at least 5 solid rules for the Mackey and Judd rules for franchise success. And this is true in every sport, okay? And I was going to start with 1. 1 is acceptance, because acceptance is the key to life. You have to accept where you are in your relationships, with your job, wherever you are in life. If you fight that, it's going to cause problems. So the acceptance of this is my lot in life, and I'm then going to adjust accordingly from there. The second one, and this is where the Vikings to me come into play here, and this is what holds them back from probably being a championship team. They're a good team, but not a championship team. And that is this one: foresee your fate. So look at your fate. Where are you in life? And then adjust accordingly from there. And this is the one where the Vikings really, really screwed up for 2020. They didn't look at and say, you know what, Phil, 2 years ago we signed Kirk and we missed the playoffs, which, by the way, was a huge red flag. And then we made the playoffs and we won a playoff game and we got really excited. That's red flag too. We got excited about one playoff win. So for 2020, we're not going to attempt to go back to Kirk and work his contract out to help our cap. We're going to make different moves. So that 2020 is Kirk's last year. We also, and this is another one, foresee your fate, okay? When I know that my head coach, his strength is cornerback play, and we just clean house of basically every starting type cornerback that we have, and we're going to bring in kids who, by the way, might be good, but this is a hard reset in the foresee your fate part of life. This is they're going to struggle, and that's okay, because we're going to not play as well as we possibly can and struggle. That's okay too. Think about that. Think about it. If the Vikings a year ago had sat down and said, let's consider our fate. Let's consider what we tried to do, and let's accept it and adjust instead of, and this is what the Vikings did, they fought it.
They got caught up in what this should look like, which is, okay, we won a playoff game, and now we're going to go from winning a playoff game to the next level, which is become Super Bowl contenders. And the pieces didn't add up. And pretty much everyone who was covering the team closely, right, on the beat level, whether it was Collar or Cronin, like everybody was saying, oh, like this isn't going to be a train wreck year, but this, like, you're for sure taking a step back. You're for sure taking a step back.
Yep.
And then when the Diggs thing happened, and by the way, like, they didn't know that Justin Jefferson was going to be this good right away. The hope was that he could maybe turn into Stephon Diggs in a couple of years, but everything pointed toward, okay, you're not going to win the Super Bowl in 2020.
Uh-huh.
And so from that standpoint, and you know what, if they had realized that and they had decided, all right, let's let it ride with Kirk into that final year of the contract. It doesn't mean that you're saying goodbye to Kirk. All kinds of quarterbacks get toward the end of contracts and then go back to their same teams, right? So you could have gotten to this point where we are right now, and Kirk could still be an option for you.
Yeah.
In the game of musical chairs with quarterbacks, right?
100%.
Now, he would be looking around the league and saying, oh my God, boy, San Francisco's got an opening. New Orleans might have an opening. The Rams are begging for a new quarterback. I got options too. And so his price might go up just because of a bidding war. But if you had just rode out the last year of his contract because, you know, I don't know, we're probably not going to win the Super Bowl in 2020. Let's just give ourselves a chance to reset the key places after the year is over. Then you could have your choice between drafting a first-round quarterback, re-signing Kirk Cousins, trading for Deshaun Watson. You just have all these options, right? Or like buying low on a Sam Darnold. Or if, and I wouldn't do this, but if you thought that Jimmy Garoppolo or Jared Goff are like reclamation projects, right? You would have all kinds of options. And people are going to say, well, why are you guys, the defense was the problem this year. Okay, yeah, the defense was terrible this year. And Kirk Cousins, had a good second half. I don't care that Kirk Cousins was like the 9th best quarterback in the NFL. I'm not going to celebrate the fact that Kirk Cousins was like the 9th best quarterback in the NFL. You know what the 9th best quarterback in the NFL gets you? Watching championship weekend on your couch at home with the rest of the teams that have quarterbacks that are 9th, 12th, 15th, 20th, 30th, etc.
Yes. And if you are basically examining 2020 and saying the defense was the problem, all right, view this from 10,000 feet, though, and answer this question. Do you think the way that the Vikings currently operate is going to win a championship? That's the question. That's the question. So the question is not, boy, if the defense improves in 2021, this team can get back to the playoffs and it can maybe get to the divisional round, which was yesterday and wasn't that fun. That's not the question. The question is, does your team, your coaching staff, Spielman, do they operate on a plane that you says, or that you say, you know what, championship type caliber plane? And the answer, if you watch these games closely, is they don't. Look at the chess that the top teams play. And the Vikings are playing really cool checkers. Really cool checkers.
They've actually been pretty adept checkers players.
Yeah,
they're good. No.
Double jumps and everything.
But that's the problem in this town. This is the problem. We are so in love with, they're pretty good. Like, we fall in love with good. Good is not great. Why don't we have championships in the men's major sports here?
Because we're good at chess.
Because
we're good at checkers. And the championship games are played in chess form.
Parisian Suitor sign. This is going to be great. They're in the playoffs. We celebrate that. We celebrate the Vikings are back in the playoffs. Ain't that great? Oh, they beat the Saints. Isn't that great? You don't get to be great until you are on a plane with the teams, and the thinking, that's the important thing here, the thought process. So like, this is never about, to me, Phil, a straight rip on Cousins. Now, after games at times, it definitely is. But when we're talking about the philosophical approach to what the Minnesota Vikings do and how they try and execute things, this is a discussion about how do you get to the top of that mountain. And the Vikings thinking, which is why I propose that we come up with the Mackey and Judd rules for franchise success, because those are the rules that are going to define championships.
Mm-hmm.
I also think, just to add a bow on what you're saying, because I don't know, I can't tell if this would be more compelling if we were like disagreeing on this. Like we both agree 100% on this, that
because we're tired.
We're sick of
good.
We're sick of good. In the case of the Minnesota Vikings, I'm not going to praise and commend good. Well, the Vikings were 11th in points offensively.
Yeah,
the Chiefs were number 1. Like the Bills were number 2. I don't give a rip about 10th or 5th. Like I want number 1. That's what I'm talking about here. And so we just need to get over this fear of, well, what if we lose good? What if good turns to bad?
Okay.
It's all the same to me at this point. Now, I don't want bad for like 10 years, but I feel like the Wilf ownership is competent enough as professional sports owners.
Yep.
We're not talking about a Houston situation here or a Cleveland Browns situation. Like that's a good ownership group that's not going to let a couple bad seasons of, oh man, well, we took a step back and it kind of spiraled on us. That's not going to turn into like 15 years of Timberwolves basketball, right? Unless you think the Wilfs are Glenn Taylor, or if you think the Wilfs are Jimmy Haslam. I don't. So I don't fear, well, what if, you can't give up good. No, good is the enemy of great. Cliche, but it's true in this case. And I'm just sick of it. And it disappoints me that Deshaun Watson's going to go play for the Jets. Like the Jets have put themselves in a position by being terrible for years and years, but they're just going to luck box their way into getting this franchise quarterback. And a team like the Vikings could use a guy like Deshaun Watson to go from good to great to win their first Super Bowl. And they can't because they've locked in too good at quarterback.